What do you do when a single text shatters your life and reveals a betrayal years in the making? I'm not coming back. I've met someone better and already moved your things to storage. My name is Elliot Carver, 49 years old, staring at my phone in the kitchen of our Bozeman condo at 3:27 a.m. on a Monday. My wife Amelia was supposed to be on day 5 of a girls' trip to Santa Fe. The text came with a screenshot of a bank transfer. $147,000 moved from our joint savings to her personal account. The screen's cold glow burned my eyes, each pixel a shard of her betrayal. I set my phone down and finished my tea. 18 years of marriage ended in 2 sentences and a screenshot. The silence of the condo was deafening, broken only by the hum of the fridge, mocking the life I thought we had. For months there had been signs. Weekend getaways that stretched longer, new clothes she never wore around me, phone calls that stopped when I entered a room. I noticed it all. I'm a forensic accountant. Noticing discrepancies is what I do for a living. But I said nothing. Maybe I was too afraid of the truth, or maybe I clung to the illusion of us. Maybe that was my first mistake. Or maybe my first mistake was marrying someone who thought my career was just spreadsheets and boring numbers. I opened my laptop and checked one of my email accounts. One Amelia didn't know existed. 3 notifications from my bank security system. Someone had attempted to change passwords on accounts Amelia had never seen. She was being thorough. I had to respect that. Her precision was chilling, a calculated strike I hadn't seen coming. I picked up my phone and typed 2 words in response. Good luck. Then I called my brother Elliot. Remember that contingency plan we discussed 7 years ago? I said when he answered. It's time. You sure? He asked, his voice heavy with concern. Yes, I replied. She just made her move. I hung up and glanced at the wedding photo on the wall. It was the only picture in the condo that still had both of us in it. I should have noticed that too. The photo's faded edges seemed to whisper, "How did you miss this, Elliot?" The condo's dim light cast long shadows, mirroring the doubts creeping into my mind. Had I been blind, or had Amelia been that good at hiding her truth? I stood there, the weight of 18 years pressing against my chest, each memory now tainted by her text. Outside, Bozeman slept under a starless sky, oblivious to the unraveling of my world. My brother's voice echoed in my head, a lifeline in the chaos. I knew what I had to do, but the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty. Would Amelia's next move be desperation or destruction? How do you love someone who sees your sacrifices as nothing more than a paycheck? I met Amelia Thornton at an alumni event for the University of Montana. I was 41, recently divorced from a short first marriage, and focused entirely on building my forensic accounting practice. Amelia was 37, vibrant, ambitious, and completely uninterested in what I did for a living. Her laugh was magnetic, drawing every eye in the room, but her dismissal of my work stung even then. I don't need to understand the details, she'd say whenever I tried to explain a case. As long as you make enough for us to live well. Her words were a velvet cage, promising love but demanding my silence. We married after 18 months of dating. I helped her open her Pilates studio, funding the entire venture from my savings. I poured my heart into her dream, believing it would bind us closer. When she wanted a bigger house and a better neighborhood, I agreed. When she wanted luxury cars and expensive vacations, I nodded and signed the checks. Each purchase was a thread, tying me to her vision of us, one I didn't dare question. My father had warned me once. We were fixing his deck and he paused, hammer in hand. Son, I notice your wife spends a lot of your money, he said carefully. Just make sure she values what you do to earn it. His weathered hands trembled slightly, as if he saw the storm I couldn't. I brushed him off, but the comment stuck with me. 8 years into our marriage, I began quietly restructuring my assets. Nothing illegal, just protective. I created 3 limited liability companies, established trusts, invested in crypto, and maintained offshore accounts for international clients. Amelia knew about our joint checking and savings, but nothing else. It was my secret fortress, built in the shadows of her indifference. I watched as she became increasingly involved in wellness influencer circles. Her Instagram followers grew into the tens of thousands. She started taking trips with her wellness community, first weekends, then full weeks. "You wouldn't enjoy it," she'd say. "It's all yoga talk and smoothie bowls." Her dismissive tone hit a truth I wasn't ready to face. I was no longer part of her world. Last Thanksgiving, she forgot my birthday. When I mentioned it the next day, she bought me an expensive wallet and said, "I've just been so busy with the studio expansion." The wallet felt like a bribe, a shiny distraction from her absence. I accepted the wallet, but that night I finalized the paperwork on my contingency plan. The signs were all there. I just didn't want to see the full picture. But deep down, a voice whispered, "She's slipping away, and she's taking everything with her." The memory of that night lingered, a bitter reminder of my own denial. The condo's sterile walls seemed to close in, each surface reflecting Amelia's curated life. Her candles, her art, her absence. My laptop screen glowed with the contingency plan's details, a blueprint for survival I'd hoped never to use. Outside, a distant coyote howled, its cry echoing my growing resolve. I was ready to act. But what would Amelia do when she realized I wasn't the pushover she thought? Would she plead for forgiveness or double down on her betrayal? What happens when the trap you set for yourself becomes your only way out? The morning after her text, I woke up early and made tea, same as always. Habits are hard to break, even when your world has collapsed. The mug's warmth was a fleeting comfort, a stark contrast to the cold reality of Amelia's words. I logged into my primary financial management system, custom built for my practice, but adapted for personal use. The screen's data was my battlefield, each number a weapon in the war I hadn't wanted to fight. With a few keystrokes, I activated the contingency protocol Elliot and I had designed years earlier. First, I froze all joint accounts and credit cards. Then, I triggered a fraud alert on the $147,000 0 cents transfer using my banking contacts to expedite the process. I sent documentation proving financial misconduct to my attorney along with instructions to file for divorce immediately. Each click was a step toward reclaiming my life, but also a leap into the unknown. Then I called my mother. "Amelia's left me," I said simply. "She took the money and moved my things out while she was supposedly on vacation." My mother was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry, Elliot," she finally said. "But I can't say I'm surprised." "What are you going to do?" "What I've been preparing to do for years," I replied. "Protect what's mine." An hour later, my phone lit up with Amelia's name. I declined the call. 12 more calls followed. Then a text. "What the hell did you do? The money's gone and my cards don't work." I didn't respond. Instead, I drove to the storage facility listed in her text. Using the code she'd sent, I retrieved 3 boxes of my clothes and my laptop. The rest of my belongings, family photos, books, mementos from my father, were nowhere to be found. The empty shelves in the storage unit were a gut punch, a deliberate erasure of my past. That's when something hardened in me. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about 18 years discarded without a second thought. It was about someone thinking they could erase me from my own life. I stopped at a coffee shop and opened my laptop. Using financial databases only available to licensed investigators, I pulled up everything I could find on Wyatt Langston, the wellness influencer Amelia had been tagging in photos for months. The someone better she'd mentioned. His smug profile picture stared back at me, a taunt from a man who thought he'd won. What I found confirmed my suspicions. Wyatt's wellness retreat business was leveraged to the hilt. Poor maxed-out business credit cards, a lease he couldn't afford, and Amelia had already co-signed on a motorcycle loan with him 3 months earlier. Each transaction was a thread in the web they'd woven, and I was about to cut it apart. I closed my laptop and drove to a hotel. For the first time in years, I felt completely clear about what needed to be done. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. But a nagging question lingered. Had Amelia planned this all along, or was Wyatt pulling the strings? The hotel room was stark, its beige walls a blank canvas for my racing thoughts. The faint hum of the heater was the only sound, a reminder of the solitude I now faced. My laptop sat on the desk, its screen dark but filled with the evidence of Amelia's betrayal. Outside, Bozeman's early morning fog clung to the streets, shrouding the city in a veil of secrecy. I was ready to strike back, but the stakes were higher than I'd imagined. What would happen when Amelia realized her plan was unraveling? Can you outsmart a betrayer who's already rewritten your life? Monday morning, I walked into my office as if nothing had happened. My assistant, Nora, looked up, surprised. "Elliot, I thought you'd be taking time off. Amelia called here 4 times already. Did she?" I said, not a question. "She sounded upset, said there was a misunderstanding with your accounts and needed to reach you urgently." I nodded. "If she calls again, tell her to contact my attorney." Nora's eyes widened, but she nodded, sensing the storm I was hiding. By noon, Amelia had escalated from calls to appearing in person. The receptionist buzzed my office. "Your wife is here. She's very insistent." I sighed and walked to the lobby. Amelia stood there, designer sunglasses pushed back on her head, Pilates clothes perfectly coordinated. She smiled when she saw me, the same smile she'd used for 18 years when she wanted something. "Elliot, there's been a huge misunderstanding with the bank," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "All our accounts are frozen." "Not a misunderstanding," I said quietly. "You transferred money without authorization. The bank flagged it as fraud." Her smile faltered. "It was our joint account. I'm your wife. You're my soon-to-be ex-wife who emptied our savings while informing me you'd moved out and found someone new. That's textbook financial misconduct." Her voice dropped to a hiss. "You cannot do this to me. I've already put deposits down on a new place. I've made commitments to Wyatt Langston." "Yes, I know all about those commitments." Her face went white. "You're investigating me?" "Just protecting myself from fraud." "I'll fight this," she snapped. "I deserve half of everything." I looked at her evenly. "Half of what's in those accounts? Sure, but you seem to be under the impression that's all there is." She blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" "You'll find out in discovery," I said, then turned and walked back to my office. Her stunned silence followed me, a crack in her carefully crafted facade. That afternoon, I received an email from Amelia's newly hired attorney demanding immediate access to all financial records and threatening to expose irregularities in my accounting practice if I didn't comply. It was an amateur move, a threat with no substance behind it. I could almost hear Amelia's desperation in the lawyer's words, a plea dressed as a demand. I forwarded it to my attorney with one line: "Proceed as planned." By evening, Amelia had rallied mutual friends to her side. My phone filled with messages asking why I was being vindictive and controlling. No one had questioned where she'd been the past week, or who she'd been with. No one asked about the money she'd taken. Their messages stung, but they were blind to the truth I now saw clearly. I didn't bother responding. Instead, I went to the gym. Not Amelia's studio or Wyatt's flashy wellness center, but the small community center where I'd been going for years. I lifted weights until my arms shook, then drove back to my hotel room. The trap was closing, but not around me. But a shadow of doubt crept in. Was I ready for the fallout when Amelia's world collapsed? The hotel's fluorescent lights buzzed faintly, casting a harsh glow over the room. My phone lay silent now, but each unanswered message from friends felt like a weight on my chest. The gym's burn still lingered in my muscles, a reminder of the strength I'd need to see this through. Outside, Bozeman's streets were quiet, but I knew a storm was brewing. Amelia's next move would reveal whether she was a victim of Wyatt's schemes or the architect of my ruin. Either way, I was ready to fight. What do you do when the truth you uncover is darker than you ever imagined? 5 days later, my attorney called. "We found something interesting," she said, her voice tight with urgency. "Amelia's been siphoning money from your joint account for over 18 months. Small transfers at first, then larger ones." "To where?" I asked, though I already knew. "Multiple accounts, some to her personal savings, but most to a business LLC registered to Wyatt Langston. Almost $95,000, 0 cents total. And she used our joint funds as the source, yes. Which means we can add financial infidelity to the divorce filing." I thanked her and hung up. I wasn't surprised, but confirmation still felt like a punch to the gut. Amelia hadn't just left me for someone else. She'd been planning it for over 18 months, funding her exit and her new boyfriend's business with my money. Each transfer was a betrayal, a deliberate step toward erasing me. That night, I received a text from an unknown number. "You need to back off. Amelia deserves better than you. Don't make this uglier than it needs to be. Wyatt Langston getting involved directly. Interesting. His words were a challenge, a dare from a man who didn't know he was already losing. I drove to my brother's house the next morning. Elliot worked in digital security, the perfect complement to my financial expertise. We'd collaborated on cases before, but this was different. I need everything you can find on Langston Wellness, LLC, I told him. Bank records, loans, credit applications, everything. Elliot raised an eyebrow. Legal channels only, right? Of course, we're just connecting public dots faster than most. 4 hours later, we had our answer. Wyatt Langston wasn't just in debt, he was underwater. His social media portrayed success, but his business was failing. The new equipment, the expansion, the promotional events all funded through risky loans, and more recently, Amelia's investments. But there was something else. Something Amelia couldn't have known. Look at this, Elliot said, pointing to his screen. Langston applied for a small business loan 6 months ago. Used the wellness center equipment as collateral. That's normal, I said. Yeah, but look who co-signed. I leaned forward. The document showed Amelia's signature on a $210,000 0-cents equipment loan. She co-signed before she left you, Elliot said quietly. But here's the kicker. The loan specifies joint responsibility with her spouse. They used your marital status to secure better terms. I stared at the screen. She put my assets on the hook for his loan without my knowledge? Exactly. And there's more. 4 credit cards, a car lease, and the new commercial space rental, all co-signed by Amelia, all leveraging your marital assets as security. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, children were playing in the yard next door, oblivious to the adult complications of the world. Their laughter was a cruel contrast to the betrayal unfolding on my screen. She has no idea what she's done, I said finally, and neither does he. Elliot's house was a sanctuary. Its familiar clutter a reminder of the family I still had, but the documents on his screen were a ticking bomb, ready to detonate Amelia's plans. The question now was how to use this without losing myself in the process. Would confronting Wyatt expose Amelia's role or push her to fight dirtier? Can you face the man who stole your life without losing your soul? The next morning, I met with my attorney and laid out everything we'd found. I want to move quickly, I told her, before they catch on. She reviewed the documents and nodded. We'll file for emergency asset protection today. The loan fraud alone is enough to freeze everything until the divorce is settled. That afternoon, I drove to Langston Wellness. The center was sleek and modern, with motivational quotes painted on the walls and Wyatt's face plastered across the entrance. The air inside reeked of eucalyptus and ambition, a facade as fragile as Wyatt's empire. Inside, 20-somethings in expensive workout gear took selfies between half-hearted sets. Wyatt spotted me immediately. He was taller in person with the artificial tan and capped teeth of someone who'd built their career on appearance. He walked over, hand extended, smile perfectly calibrated. You must be Elliot, he said. Amelia's mentioned you. I'm sure she has, I replied, not taking his hand. We need to talk privately. His smile faltered, but he led me to his office, glass-walled, visible to everyone but soundproof. What can I do for you? He asked, closing the door. I placed a folder on his desk. This is every financial document connecting you to Amelia. Loans, credit cards, leases, all co-signed using our marital assets as security. He picked up the folder cautiously. I don't understand. It's simple. Amelia used our marriage to back your business loans. Now we're divorcing and those guarantees are invalid. The color drained from his face as he flipped through the pages. These are all legitimate business arrangements between Amelia and me. Maybe, but the banks approved them based on our combined assets and income. Assets she no longer has access to. He closed the folder. What do you want? Nothing from you. Just thought you should know what's coming. The banks will be calling those loans due very soon. Amelia said you were wealthy, he said, voice hardening. That money's not an issue for you. Money's never been the issue, I replied. Trust was. I stood up to leave, but paused at the door. One more thing. When Amelia moved out, she took some items of sentimental value to me. Family photos, my father's ring, things money can't replace. He stared at me for a long moment. I'll see what I can do. I nodded and left. His polished exterior cracked just enough to show the panic beneath, a glimpse of the man who'd underestimated me. The next day, a courier delivered a box to my hotel. Inside were the missing photos, my father's ring and other personal items, no note included. The box felt like a concession but also a challenge. Wyatt was still in the game. That same afternoon, my attorney confirmed the emergency asset protection had been granted. All shared assets would remain frozen until the divorce was finalized. The hotel's sterile quiet was a stark contrast to the chaos I'd just ignited. I logged into my financial management system and reviewed the alerts. Amelia had attempted to access our frozen account 19 times in the past 24 hours. She'd also tried to open a new credit line using our condo as collateral. Denied. Each failed attempt was a victory, but also a reminder of the war I was waging. My phone lit up with her name again. This time I answered. "What have you done?" she demanded, voice shaking. "The bank called in Wyatt's loans, all of them. They're seizing the equipment tomorrow." "That's unfortunate," I said calmly. "This is vindictive, Elliot. You're destroying him to get back at me." "I'm not doing anything to him. I'm protecting myself from fraud. You used our marriage to secure his loans without my knowledge or consent? That's illegal." "We can work this out," she said, voice softening suddenly. "Come home, we'll talk." 18 years of marriage and she still thought I could be manipulated that easily. "There's nothing to work out," I replied. "The divorce will proceed, the fraud investigation will continue, and Wyatt will learn an expensive lesson about due diligence." I ended the call and blocked her number. That night, I slept better than I had in months, but a whisper of unease lingered. Was Amelia desperate enough to strike back in ways I couldn't predict? Can you face the woman who betrayed you when she's begging for mercy? 4 weeks later, I sat in a conference room as Amelia and her attorney arrived for our court-ordered mediation. She looked tired, the designer outfit and perfect makeup unable to hide the strain. Her eyes darted nervously, a far cry from the confident influencer I'd once known. Her attorney spoke first. "My client is willing to be reasonable about the division of assets despite the aggressive tactics employed thus far." My attorney smiled politely. "That's good to hear, because there's been a development." She slid a document across the table. "The bank has completed its fraud investigation. They've determined that Amelia forged Elliot's signature on multiple loan documents using their marital assets as collateral without his knowledge." Amelia's attorney skimmed the document, face paling. "We'll need time to review this, of course," my attorney said. "But you should know that the bank has already referred the matter to the district attorney. This meeting is a courtesy before criminal charges are filed." Amelia stared at me, eyes wide. "Criminal charges? Elliot? You can't be serious." I met her gaze steadily. "I didn't file the charges, the bank did. That's what happens when you commit loan fraud." Her attorney whispered something in her ear. She shook her head vehemently. "If Miss Thornton is willing to sign our proposed settlement agreement today," my attorney continued, "Elliot is prepared to provide a statement to the bank that could mitigate the criminal implications. He won't press charges for the theft of personal property or the unauthorized transfer from the joint account." I watched as Amelia's carefully constructed world collapsed. She'd expected anger, jealousy, perhaps even begging. She hadn't expected consequences. Her hands trembled as she clutched the table, a woman unmoored by her own choices. "The settlement is generous," I said quietly. "You keep your Pilates studio, which was always profitable. You keep your car and personal belongings. You receive no alimony, and you assume responsibility for the debts you incurred in my name." "And Wyatt?" she asked, voice barely audible. "Mr. Langston's financial issues are his own problem," my attorney replied. "But without your husband's assets backing those loans, I understand the bank has already begun repossession proceedings." Amelia signed the papers without further argument. As we left the conference room, she caught my arm. "I never thought you'd fight back like this," she said. "You always just went along with everything." "That was my choice," I replied, "just like this was yours." I walked away without looking back. Her touch lingered on my arm, a ghost of the life we'd shared, now gone forever. The conference room's sterile air felt heavy with the weight of finality. The signed papers sat on the table, a testament to the end of 18 years. Outside, Bozeman's midday sun burned through the fog, illuminating a world that no longer included Amelia. I felt a strange mix of relief and loss, but my resolve was unshaken. The question now was whether Amelia would accept defeat or find a new way to lash out. Can you rebuild your life when the past refuses to let go? 6 weeks later, I moved out of the hotel and into a small house near downtown Bozeman. Nothing fancy, just a craftsman with good bones that needed some work. The kind of project that would keep my hands busy and my mind occupied during the evenings. The house's creaky floors and chipped paint were a canvas for my new beginning, a chance to build something truly mine. I heard through mutual friends that Amelia had moved to Oregon to start over. Her Instagram showed coastal views and inspirational quotes about new beginnings. Wyatt's wellness center had been sold to a national chain and he'd relocated to Denver to expand his brand. Neither of them mentioned what had happened. People rarely advertised their failures. But whispers reached me, rumors of Amelia's struggles, her polished posts hiding a life on the edge of collapse. My brother Elliot stopped by one Saturday to help me install new cabinets in the kitchen. "Heard anything from Amelia?" he asked as we measured for the hinges. "No," I said. "And I don't expect to." "You know, you could have taken her for everything. The fraud charges alone would have ensured that." I shrugged. "What would be the point? She's no longer my problem." We worked in comfortable silence for a while, the rhythm of measuring, cutting, and mounting creating a meditative state. "I'm thinking of taking some time off," I said eventually. "Maybe drive up to Idaho, do some fishing at the cabin." "Dad would like that," Elliot replied. "You haven't been there since he passed?" That evening, after Elliot left, I sat on my back porch with a glass of whiskey. The neighborhood was quiet, with only the occasional dog bark or child's laugh breaking the silence, different from the upscale community Amelia had insisted on, more real somehow. The stars above Bozeman glittered, each one a reminder of the freedom I'd fought for. I thought about the last 18 years, how I'd allowed someone else to define my life, my worth, how I'd noticed the signs but chosen to ignore them, how when the moment came I'd been prepared, because some part of me had always known this day would arrive. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt free. But a faint echo of Amelia's voice lingered. Would she ever truly let go? The next morning, I called my office and told them I'd be taking 3 weeks off. Then I packed my truck, locked up the house, and headed north. The open roads stretched before me, a path unburdened by the past but shadowed by its lessons. No itinerary, no expectations, just the promise of a new start. As Bozeman faded in my rear view, I wondered if freedom was truly mine or if Amelia's shadow would follow me still. And for the first time in years, no invisible ledger of resentments to balance. The future was uncertain, but for now, I was ready to face it alone.